Thanks for being with us. Welcome in Section 1904. It is Wednesday. Just want to start by saying thank you to all the people that appear on this show. We've recently increased the frequency of some of the guests, and whether it was John Arnold or Sean Kelly or Eric Gomez, I'm probably going to miss some people here, but we would like for you guys to support their work as well. And I'm just reminded because as I'm sitting here and John and I are pushing record on today's Section 1904 podcast, I did see an email pop into my inbox from John Arnold. So if you like listening to John on the podcast, I hope you'll consider checking out his page on Substack, some of the work that he does covering CONCACAF, the North American Central Confederation for soccer in our region. And I hope you'll support Sean Kelly on social media. We have other guests that have books coming out, so stay tuned for that. We will let you know some of those details, but as much as we appreciate people that support us, we hope people will support some of the people who are appearing on this show as well. And we hope you will support this podcast. Maybe you're in the free preview. Maybe you're just checking it out for a couple of days, taking it for a trial run. We're going to spend some time today talking about some of the stories that appeared in the inbox in today's front row seat. This is one of the benefits you get if you become a subscriber to Section 1904, and I can tell you from personal experience today, of all days, this has really been helpful for me because I have had an overwhelming morning, and there is a situation that has popped into my life that is quite trying, and this will be a shorter podcast as a result of that. But in order for me to make any sense today at all on this podcast, I looked to the front row seat in my inbox and I said, okay, I feel a bit caught up, whether that's about Wimbledon, whether that's about Red Bull racing, whether that's about some of the stuff that I might have missed in all the excitement of the Padres game from last night. So John, thank you for doing that. I feel a bit more prepared here today on Wednesday as a result of the front row seat. So thank you very much for taking the time to do it as always.
No problem. The only person you forgot that I can think of was when we had Nate Jones on to talk about artificial intelligence, which was a really good conversation. And I've been checking his Substack pretty regularly the last few days because there's a lot of stuff happening in AI and a lot of stuff around the corner in AI and a lot of interesting conversations about it. To be honest with you, one of the reasons that I do front row seat is to help myself prepare for these podcasts. I was talking with the Emo Brown guys. I don't know if it was during the podcast or off, and they were like, so what do you guys do for like show notes and a rundown and all that? I was like, we don't really. I was like, we just kind of text in the morning of like, what do you want to talk about? And they were like, well, what if it's something that you don't know anything about? And I'm like, I don't know, man. I do the front row seat. I'm kind of up on everything. I can go in any direction, and Darren knows that. And that makes it easy for us to just kind of like wing it and have the natural conversation that we would naturally be having. So you're welcome, but also it's helpful to me too.
Yeah, very helpful, like I said. And you know, today will be a little bit of a shorter podcast that'll probably make more sense in the next couple of days. I'm just facing an impossible decision. Not whether to pull for Real Madrid or Paris Saint-Germain, but we'll probably make a little bit more sense here over the next couple of days. But Padres did win last night, and I did check the Discord. I went out to dinner last night. I got invited. I was a tag-along. I got to ride the coattails of the missus, and we got invited to the Friends and Family opening of Mastro's. Have you ever been to a Mastro's before? I have not. This was my first experience. Bougie steakhouse, seafoody kind of place in the Intercontinental Hotel.
I'm familiar.
I did pick a seat strategically so that I could see the television across the restaurant and across the bar, and they did have the Padre game on. So I did catch some of it. I wasn't glued to it. I didn't hear the commentary. I did see what it was that was happening. I did see these two catches. I don't know. Maybe this catch from Fernando Tatis Jr., John, will get him going. I mean, these were great catches, and I was reminded on the Discord when I got home, and thank you again to the people on the Discord, about Tatis in moments, and that was a great example of it because we discussed that yesterday about Tatis, and you know, you could look at numbers and you could say, yeah, like it's not bad, but I really do think such a part of the story for Fernando Tatis Jr. is providing those kind of moments. I could rattle off 10. We used to do a bit on the radio show, John, where we would say, well, what's more interesting, Fernando Tatis Jr. or the other 24, 25 Padres combined? And the answer was usually Tatis. And so we would spend 5-7 minutes saying today in Tatis. And we would just talk about whatever it was that Tatis did in his 4 or 5 at-bats in the field, et cetera, running the bases, because it was more interesting than the rest of it combined. Yeah. And I miss that. I do. I miss that. I'm not pulling the plug on my belief or my adoration for Tatis or my fandom. I should say, but it was nice to be reminded of what it's like when he does something that's really, really special, like last night, wasn't it?
Yeah, the catch was great. There was a moment, not that I want to turn things negative, but this is what I mean, and maybe someone's gonna feel the same way. There was I'm putting moments in quote, like I'm using moments the regular way, not the way that we've been talking about it. There was a moment earlier in the game where Tatis was up, and he got a ball in the strike zone, and he hit it, and it looked like he hit it hard, and I was like, there we go. And then it just landed about 15 feet in front of the left fielder. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Like, where is his power? Like, he's making almost the same contact. There's just like no oomph behind it. But everything else is there. The defense is there. The base running is there. He's getting on base a lot. There was a really weird moment with him where he was on first base. I believe there was one out. Maybe he thought there was two. And whoever was hitting behind him, I think it was Arraez, grounded to first base. And because there's one out, the first baseman throws to second base, and Tatis never slides. He just like runs into second base, and the second baseman catches the ball, and like Tatis is like in his face. He was like, and he had to like jump out of the way to throw to Arraez. And Don and Mud were like, that's dangerous. Like you're supposed to slide to get out of the way because it's dangerous. You don't want them throwing the ball in your face. But he probably just lost track of how many outs there were. It wasn't that big of a deal. But yeah, I mean, look, Tatis had a great catch. Merrill had a great catch. Pivetta kept getting himself in trouble and pitching out of it, but, did no damage. And then the only run of the entire game, just like everyone predicted, Luis Arraez absolutely fucking destroys a ball into right field. And our buddy Dylan from Letters to AJ, I noticed this right after I hit publish on Front Row Seat, did a breakdown of that at bat. And he was basically saying, like, Arraez was looking fastball and he was looking to hit a home run. And, like, that's a weird thing to say about Luis Arraez, but, I mean, he hit it and he immediately knew, and he immediately looked in the opposing dugout, which I thought was interesting. And there you go, 1-0 win for the Padres.
Yeah, it's interesting because, like I said, I was across a restaurant full of people, and I was enjoying a bone-in filet mignon and a glass of... Yeah, I didn't realize that either. And I've been to a million steakhouses in my life. I cannot tell you that I remember ever having a bone-in filet mignon before.
I thought filet meant no bone.
I just thought it was a different cut of meat that was further away from the bone, because fillets are usually very lean cuts of meat.
Right.
So you would think bone-in New York strip, bone-in ribeye, things along those lines.
Yeah.
But I for the life of me, I was like, have I had this before?
Was it good?
I feel like I... Whatever. Oh, it's delicious.
Okay.
It was great. And the plate was the hottest plate I've ever eaten on, to the point where the steak comes out a little bit under temperature that you ordered it. How do you order your steak? Maybe I don't want to know the answer to this question.
You do want to know the answer to this question. I have particular ways in which I order steak when I'm out. Because I'm on the safe side, will usually, by safe side, I mean, I don't think a lot of people, even the ones cooking at restaurants, unless it's a really good steakhouse, understand what medium rare means. And I think when I order medium rare, about half the time I get it too rare. So I just go medium, and I'm like, if I want a steak actually medium rare, I'll do it at home, or I'll go to a good steakhouse. So I usually order medium. But how do I like my steaks? Medium rare.
Okay, but wait, what do you do? So you go to a nice steakhouse. How do you order? Because you go to a nice steakhouse,
I order medium rare.
You order medium rare.
Yeah.
Because medium rare is, you said not a lot of people know what it is, cool pink center.
Yes. Exactly.
Cool. You're okay with that?
I'm okay with that. I just don't want it red.
Okay.
Yeah.
I sat next to a guy yesterday who ordered something, and I never heard this before in my life. And I think I converted him into a subscriber. So I don't want this to come across as criticism, but I just have never heard of this. He said he orders it medium rare plus. I was like, what the fuck is medium rare plus? And I can tell you, as somebody who worked in a lot of kitchens, if I went back to some of the chefs that I used to work for and said medium rare plus, they would throw me out of the kitchen. Yep. Like throw things at me and say, you go out there and tell that fucking person that's not how we serve meat in this place. True story. Like those chefs don't like, there's no key for it when you're plugging it. Anyway, had you ever heard of that before? Medium rare plus?
No,
because it sounds similar to what it is that you're saying.
Yeah, it sounds like he wanted to order medium, but he didn't want to say medium.
He said he thinks when he goes to restaurants, when he goes to finer places, that they are more inclined to undercook a piece of meat than overcook it, because once you overcook something, you have to toss it out.
Yeah.
You essentially got to toss it in the trash.
No, he's right. That's why I order medium unless I'm at a good steakhouse.
So he wants to let these guys know he wants medium rare So, don't make it rare thinking it's going to cook, and I was a little confused by what he was saying.
At a place like that, you just say medium rare. They know what they're doing.
That's what I went with as well. Medium rare. My wife likes it rare.
Oof.
Rare. Yeah, she does. And sometimes, only time she ever had to send a steak back, we were in Panama, the country, not the city, Panama. And she ordered it rare, and she's like, oh, yeah, great cuts of meat down here. And it was raw. And I mean, it was not cooked at all. It was cold and red, and it looked like it was just plucked right out of the butcher shelf.
Have you ever had steak tartare?
Yeah, I like steak tartare. I just had amazing steak tartare recently, as a matter of fact. Where were we? I don't remember, but it was amazing. I had
it once at a really good French restaurant downtown that's not there anymore, that had like a woman's name, Chloe, Madeline, something like that. It was great. And I got food poisoning that night, and now I can't look at steak tartare without my stomach turning. So I've only had it once. I don't know if I'll ever have it again.
I just had it Thursday. Last week we went to Seasons 52, I think.
Yeah.
Seasons 52 Ready V's, whichever one. I get these confused all the time, and my wife hates me for it because they're both her clients. But whichever one is in Seaport Village, and they both used to be there. Only one of them is there now. I think it's. Anyway, we had great steak tartare there. It was phenomenal. What was I saying? Anyhow, where was this going? I look across.
You were having filet mignon with a bone in, yeah.
And I see the home run, and it was hit so far, and I thought it was Luis Arraez, and I said, well, that can't be Luis Arraez. Who is this person who is hitting the ball this far? And now I'm processing in my head, well, who is left-handed that can hit a ball that far? And obviously it wasn't Jay Cronenworth. Obviously it wasn't Gavin Sheets. And I was like, have I missed a call-up? Have I missed somebody who's been added to this roster who can hit a baseball that far? Because clearly it wasn't one of the white players. And I just and I was like, no, that was Luis Arraez. Mm-hmm. So good on him. Couple of good catches, good pitching. Another all-star added to the mix. You talked a little bit about Dylan, Letters to AJ, analyzing that. I have not yet read it. I will. But I do want to just point something out. Yesterday, we talked a little bit about Yu Darvish, right? And Yu Darvish, not just his pitching, but also his post-game presser. And what stood out to us about the backdrop and that he was using the translator. And I don't want to put words in your mouth, but were you surprised that he still uses a translator? I'm not. And I'll tell you why in a second here. But I'm not. I know he understands it. Obviously, he was asked questions in English, and he didn't need the translator. And I thought, hey, listen, he just wants to make sure that what he's saying is getting out there properly, and I'm fine with that. I don't have any issue with that. I listened to network radio over the weekend, and somebody was railing against Shohei Ohtani because he doesn't speak English. And that's why baseball is not as popular as it used to be. I was like, what the fuck? What are you talking about? That's stupid.
No, my thing on Darvish and the translator is that I know that Darvish speaks English fluently and has for many years. And I was like, it's interesting that he has a translator because he speaks English fluently. And if I can derail us for a second, I was just wondering why he would have a translator later if he didn't need one. You say it's for clarity's sake.
Right.
I actually wonder if it's more setting the example so that other players who come over don't feel obligated to learn the language and get rid of their translator, right? Like there's no pressure on Shohei Ohtani to be like, hey buddy, it's been like 5 years now. It's time to get rid of the translator and start speaking English, because that's what Darvish did. And that's what Nomo did. And that's what whatever did. That's what Sammy. And the reason I thought of this was I'm gonna mention someone who you probably hate, but I read this Reddit AMA with Horace Grant, and they asked him,
who? Horace Grant, the Chicago Bulls?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they asked him, about wearing the goggles his whole career, because he wore goggles his entire career. And he said when he got to the league, he was legally blind without them, so he had to wear them. And then he had LASIK surgery that got him to 20/20 vision, and he decided to get new goggles and wear them constantly, not because he was like afraid of eyes or anything like that. He said, I had so many kids come up to me and say, I thought I was never going to be able to make it in the NBA because I wear glasses, and you convinced me that it was possible. And he was like, for the last 7 years of my career, I didn't need them. I wore them for those kids. So I wondered how much was Darvish's translator was like him doing it as an example for others.
Yeah, and for the record, right, neither one of us have any issue with this.
No.
Yeah, I'm fine with it.
I find it interesting.
I just think somebody really wants to make sure that the answers are coming out as clearly as possible and possibly related. And this isn't intended as criticism either. So not everything needs to be criticism in the world. And I'm not criticizing AC and I'm not criticizing Luis Arraez. But I did read the Padre Daily today, and Kevin quoted Arraez verbatim in some of his answers. So, he was asking about the home run swing. And Arraez says, and I quote, "The situation, it was bottom of the seventh. I say, if he throws me cutter or fastball, I try to hit a fly ball to right field and maybe I hit a homer. I don't try to hit homers. I try to hit line drives, but I pick my spot there and I hit it out." And, he threw me curve. He threw me changeup. I said, okay, it's my time to maybe try, and I try it, and thank God I hit it out. And listen, it's good enough. I don't think anybody's going to stop over that and feel critical towards Luis Arraez. I can tell you that I get very uncomfortable for as complimentary as the Emo Brown guys were about my Spanish. Every time I'm sitting next to Adrian Garcia Marquez, I panic when I have to say something in Spanish. We had a goal scorer from Houston over the weekend. You and I would most likely say in casual conversation that this is Franco Escobar. Mm-hmm. But, Adrian says, Franco Escobar. And he says it, and I'm like, well, do I want to do that? But now if I fuck it up, so I have so much credit for people who stand before microphones and stand before cameras and stand before weirdos in the media and speak in a language that is not their native language for the record. But I like, is Casey supposed to clean that up, or is it not something worth cleaning up? Or what does the AP style book say about how you're supposed to quote players? Because I know a lot of reporters have taken some liberties in adding in a verb. Let's say if a verb, and I wonder a little bit if that's something that Darvish just doesn't want to be quoted. Maybe saying something that could be, again, this isn't criticism at all. It's just as an observation. He says, he threw me curve. He threw me changeup. AC could have said he threw me a curve. He threw me, he chose not to. I'm fine with that. I'm fine with what AC did, and I'm fine with the rise. I get the point. But I do wonder a little bit if that is something that athletes do think about. Again, just from my own personal experience of not wanting to get it wrong, but also appreciating that others have more balls than I do to say this sort of stuff.
Two things.
Does any of that make sense?
Yeah,
or
totally.
Should we just move on to NASCAR?
No, totally makes sense, and we can move on in a second. But first thing is everything that Luis Arraez said, I had not read the Padre Daily yet, is basically what Dylan said in his Letters to AJ post, where he was showing the first at bat, Luis Arraez got fastball cutter. The second at bat, he got cutter fastball. And the third at bat, he was just sitting fastball or cutter. And you can see him after the first pitch, the curveball, he literally shakes his head no. The second pitch, the changeup comes in. He makes no effort at all because he's just that's not a fastball. I'm waiting for a fastball. And then 2-0, he just sat fastball and he's like, I'm going to kill this. And the swing path was different. Dylan actually broke down his swing path was more upward. So everything that he said is exactly what Dylan found in the stats. So that's fun. The other side, to continue the conversation we're having, as far as whether or not AC should put clarifying verbs in there or whatever, I think there's a world because of how baseball players talk to one another that would make sense if coming from Jackson Merrill too. Hey, I was sitting there, he threw me curveball, he threw me changeup, I was sitting on cutter. They sometimes skip the verbs when they're talking through at bats as well. So I think it made more sense in that situation. I'd be okay if AC wanted to add a clarifying verb at some point, but if you had taken that quote and attributed it to a player whose English was their primary language, I'd just be like, that's how baseball players talk.
Yeah, well, I can remember now, just to make this not just about players who are speaking in a second language. I can remember being in spring training one year, and I remember David Wells when he was with the Padres, and he was talking about an outing that he just had. He probably pitched 2-3 innings or whatever, and he was sitting in the Padre clubhouse, and some of the print reporters were there. I remember Bill Center sitting at the table, listening, and Bill and David Wells, every other word out of his mouth was fuck. David Wells, it's just the way he is.
Yeah.
And every other word is then I threw him a fucking change up, and the guy blah, 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 and it's out of the fucking park. I read the story the next day in the newspaper. There was none of that.
Well, of course.
Bill took the liberty of editing out everything. And again, I bring it up because in AC's in the same thing. When he's writing about Jackson Merrill says something to the effect of, everybody knows I'm doing jack shit at the plate, or something like that. I'm paraphrasing. I don't have the quote in front of me. And AC doesn't print out the whole word, but he does say, S-T or whatever it is, whatever the actual cuss word was. And I was like, At what point do you just print the word? Like just print it. Like, what is stopping you from printing the word? If you're going to quote it to that point, then why don't you just print it? Boy, this is taking a turn that I didn't expect.
Yeah, right.
Marty sometimes stands in there with her camera, and Marty catches these guys saying these sort of things, and Marty posts it. And Marty has gotten pushback from people in the PR department. Whether they're there or not anymore doesn't matter. But Marty has gotten pushback from people like, hey, can you take that down? And she'd be like, take what down? Manny saying it's been a fucking hell of a week. Remember that meme that made the rounds?
Yeah.
That was from Marty. And the PR department there objected to her posting that and said, well, do you think Manny's going to want to talk to you after you put that out? She's like, yeah, probably, because that's how Manny talks all the goddamn time.
Yeah.
So, it's like an interesting thing that we went from, these writers kind of being the editors for some of these guys now to just printing them quite literally, but maybe not as literally because there are still rules in place about what language you can use and not use. I don't know.
Well,
why are we talking about this? Maybe we should move on. I think this is interesting. I actually do.
No.
And
I think this got brought up on Emo Brown where we were talking about how like cursing is just becoming more normal in everyday conversations than it used to be, right? Like, even 20 years ago, you'd say a curse word in an office environment. People would be like, what are you doing? Like, you can't use that language here. And now it's like pretty constant. The Merrill thing, it says, I haven't been doing SH with the bat. Now, I guess you could say, like, maybe he said, I haven't been doing sh with the bat. Like, he wants to say it, but he doesn't actually want to say it. There's some mystery about whether or not he did say it. I do know that I'm going to
guess he said it.
I'm going to guess he said it. There are a lot of people out there, and probably not in our audience, but there's a lot of people out there who like won't listen to podcasts if they have curse words in there, won't read books if they have curse words in there, won't read a newspaper if the newspaper prints a curse word. And, I've worked on very big podcasts that used to get hate mail because someone would say like, God damn, or oh my God. And they're like, you're blasphemous podcast, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I don't know, man. They're just words. And this is how people converse in 2025. And it's got a little bit more spice and flavor and foul language than it used to. But look, we all lived through a pandemic and we're living through a fall of a major global power. Like, we're allowed to drop an F-bomb every now and then.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't do it to be gratuitous.
Right.
I think you cuss more than I do.
Probably.
When we open our bank account, I got to admit, I was a little uncomfortable with how frequently you said the F word in front of our banker.
He did say he was a ball player, Darren.
He was a former baseball player. That's right. He did play at USC, but I was like, gosh, John just isn't afraid to let it rip.
You got to remember
inside of Wells Fargo.
You got to remember, I live and am married to someone who works for a financial institution who occasionally has been described as cursing like a trucker by her coworkers. So these things fly. These things fly these days.
I'm in the same boat. I'm married to a woman who works in a male-dominated beverage industry with a lot of men who aggressively curse. And so sometimes she comes on with those habits, and I can cringe a little bit at the way it is. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that that's why Yu Darvish still uses a translator, because he doesn't want to see, potential grammatical errors in print. And I don't know that you're supposed to clean it up. I don't know that you're not supposed to clean it up. I don't know that any of this is interesting. But at any rate, it's interesting to me, and hopefully that means it's interesting to other people as well. All right, so the Padres win Game 3, Game 2, Game 3 coming up. They got another All-Star in the All-Star break, so I guess we were both right. Both Jason Adam and Robert Suarez. I can't wait for Robert Suarez to walk into the National League All-Star dugout, and what's the exchange going to be like with him and Shohei Ohtani?
They probably won't even end up talking. Did you see I didn't put this in front row seat. There was a Juan Soto story that our Discord was talking about. Juan Soto was angry.
Is that a real quote?
I don't know. He was angry that he didn't go to the All-Star game because he gets a bonus, and he was like mad about the amount of money that he wasn't going to get. And I'm like, do you really think there's a world in which Juan Soto is mad about $100,000? Like, about anything? Maybe.
I don't. I mean, unless it was earmarked for some sort of charity. I don't know. I mean, part of me thought that was one of those MLB on fax,
Yeah.
One of those fake accounts, but maybe he did say it.
I mean,
I don't know. I mean, at some point, people got to get over Juan Soto. I will say that.
That's true.
But, to each their own. I don't get involved. Jody, if you're listening, if you want to keep shouting about Juan Soto, keep shouting about Juan Soto. Thank you for all the contributions to the Discord. I mean, that's what it's all about. And Shildt got run, so obviously this was the motivation that the club was looking. Can I just say quickly, and then we'll move on to other stuff, how hilarious I think it is that Mike Shildt is still in full uniform for the post-game press conference. He got thrown out in the 6th inning, whether it was justified or not, who cares? But he was still in uniform, button all the way to the top.
All the way to the top.
All the way to the top by an hour plus later for the post-game press conference, still in his cap. Still has his cap on. I mean, you could tell me that Mike Shildt sleeps in his baseball uniform, and I would believe you.
Okay.
I would totally believe you.
One question, and then I have a point about this game, and then we can move on from the Padres because there's not a lot to talk about this one specific game. You were around, Bruce.
Even though we're going on 30 minutes here talking about
we were talking about steaks for a while, Darren. Would Bruce Bochy have been wearing his uniform after the game if he got run in the 6th inning?
I don't think so. But
you've been there.
I don't know.
I don't remember Boch in like jeans and a t-shirt at the post-game presser. Do you?
I don't. I'm not saying that he would have been showered and changed. I'm just, that he's like still. I've just been told it stands out to me because somebody who works for the Padres told me that Shildt is he is a uniform guy. Like he is all about the uniform. You're not going to catch Shildt out there wearing a windbreaker. You're not going to catch Shildt out there. He's a uniform guy through and through. And I hope this person doesn't mind. I will share a text I got from somebody there who's like, Mike, he doesn't just run through the finish line. He runs into the parking lot. Which I'm like, yeah, that's a good line. So it's a good line about Mike, but that's who he is. He's just like, he's this baseball creation, he's just like this baseball creation, and he loves uniforms, and he, loves nicknames, and it's just what he is. He's just like he's like this baseball egg that hatched and produced Mike Shildt.
There's no chance that he doesn't end up like on MLB Network for 20 years after he's done managing because he doesn't want to do anything else.
In uniform, full uniform too.
Full
uniform. Like, can I wear jerseys on the set? Is that okay? Is that good? Or are you guys good with that or what?
And
like,
the pants too.
He's such a baseball guy. It does make you laugh.
The other thing, I noticed this, and I think I mentioned it in the Discord, but you were busy at dinner, is so Pivetta got pulled at 104 pitches. With 1 out left in the 6th. And they made it a point to say that it was his highest pitch total of the season, 104 pitches. And at this point, Mike Shildt had been tossed. So Esposito, I've even forgotten what his first name is, Ben. They just call him Espo, was acting manager. He came out to get Pivetta. And I'm something of an amateur lip reader, Darren. And
I like it.
What I saw from, I couldn't see Pivetta, just the back of Pavetta's head, but what I saw from Espo was him saying, I know, man, I know, I can't. And then Pivetta like stormed off the mound. And I took that to mean with 1 out left in the 6th that Pivetta was like, you can't fucking take me out, man. And he had just struck someone out. And for the second out of the inning. And I think he was probably like, I just struck a guy out. Why are you taking me out? And Espo was like, oh, hands are tied, man. Gotta do it. Do you have any thoughts on that? Is that like, the managing is coming from upstairs type of thing?
I wonder if they did have to barricade Cease in his, or not Cease, Shildt in his office again, like he did for the suspension. That's something we never touched on, right?
They had
MLB
to
security,
his
like
office.
Oh yeah. MLB security like made sure that he stayed in his office for that game, like as if you can't communicate from your office. Very
That's
bizarre.
Hilarious. I had no idea.
Yeah, which makes me wonder, why would it even go to the game?
Yeah, just watch it from home.
Bro, you can't miss a press conference. Like, do you love doing those fucking press conferences that much?
Was he wearing his baseball uniform?
You can't stand to miss a day where AJ Cassavell isn't asking you about your lineup.
Do you think he was in his office in his baseball uniform?
Yeah. On the day he was suspended?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so, because I think he was there pregame in his uniform. So
that's amazing.
Anyhow, I mean, it's a funny thing, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to your question. I think I needed to have watched it to have an opinion.
I mean, it didn't seem like a big deal, but and I wondered if Pivetta would have done the same thing if it was Shildt, or if it's just because like, hey, here's the kind of replacement manager type of thing.
Right.
Maybe
substitute teacher. Maybe I can talk my way into staying here.
Maybe, but it definitely seemed like Pivetta was not happy about being taken out. Not that that means anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, so Espo's the guy who was the manager? He was the acting manager?
Yeah.
So does he get the win since Shildt was kicked out of this game, or does that win go to Shildt?
I don't know.
Either.
Did they
I know
split
the
it?
answer. No, it goes to Shildt.
Yeah.
Anyhow, it'll be Cease and Fald tonight. the underwhelming Dylan Cease, who everybody keeps thinking maybe he's close.
Everyone says he's good at home. They say he's good at Petco, just bad on the road. So maybe we'll get good Cease tonight.
Well, that's too bad you don't play more than 50% of your games at home.
Yeah.
They are going to use automatic balls and strikes in the All-Star game this year, John.
Stupid.
Any thoughts on that?
It's stupid. Like, it's just stupid. Like, what are they doing with the All-Star game? Like,
I don't know.
Like at some point, it was real. It mattered. Now it doesn't matter. But they're not adding any sort of like excitement or entertainment value to it. Like it's just blah. And like you're gonna ask these players to do this for one game. So here's the thing: there's three options here. Either A, no one uses it in the entire game. B, fans and players are pissed at the end of the game because they used it and it somehow threw off something in this meaningless game that doesn't matter. Or C, the most likely thing is it gets used a couple times. Everyone's like, that's great. And then 3 days later, you got to go back to playing baseball without it. And everyone's like, what the hell was that? Like, I don't understand why they didn't turn it on before this season when it was so popular during spring training. It's so popular that during the beginning parts of the regular season, players were using the head on top of their helmet thing to basically mock umpires when they didn't agree with the calls. I just this pussyfooting around stuff by baseball where they're like, we had this great idea, we want to do it. Well, we'll do it in the minors, we'll do it in spring training, we'll do it in the All-Star game, but like just never going to do it in a regular game. This is like when they had the ghost runner for regular season, but not in the playoffs. I don't even know if that's the case anymore.
I think it is, right?
Why are you having different rules for different things? Like you're changing the sport depending on the day it's played. It's ridiculous.
Maybe the Players Association doesn't get to chime in on whether you use it for the All-Star game. I don't know the answer to it. I'm okay with it. I will say it's as much a reason for me to tune into the All-Star game as any other reason.
I don't have any.
If I'm being honest, I haven't made plans to watch this. I haven't made plans not to watch this. If I happen to be in front of a television and I'm not distracted by something else, then I will watch this. But if I'm distracted by something else, I probably will not. And it's just not a form of it. But I might want to see, if we're heading down this road anyway, for as much as we talked about technology the other day in the Gold Cup final, and with Eric Gomez, a great conversation, which I think is relevant for all sports. We talked about it with Wimbledon. We talk about it with football. We talk about it with soccer and baseball, etc. It's all heading this way, whether we like it or not. So I might, but we're not going to. So what does that mean? There's not going to be any umpires? I guess I should have read the story. I just read the headlines.
The way ABS works is basically there's an umpire.
Right, and if you object to it, then you can say, hey, listen, I think that was out. Yeah.
The pitcher, the catcher, or the batter can say, like, can we review that? They tap the top of their head. The umpire, checks his earpiece and goes, actually, that was a strike, and then they move on. It's quick, it's easy, it's efficient, it's good. The Wimbledon thing is wild.
We just don't know if it's right. I mean, that's the only thing. Like,
no idea.
We still are relying on the technology that as we talked about when Manny got punched out against the Dodgers in that extra inning game. Everybody went to bed in San Diego going, oh, man, that was ridiculous. You had Don and Mudd going, oh, they took the bat out of his hands, man. That's some bad umpiring. Except guess what? We woke up the next day and there was better technology than baseball's own television production, which is Padres TV, which told us that the pitch was a strike. So like am I supposed to believe that they've got the strike zone totally figured out for ABS? I don't know. I guess maybe. I don't know. I'm not convinced that it's totally figured out.
I'm not convinced that it's totally figured out. And honestly, like I said, the what's going on at Wimbledon this year has me a little bit freaked out about the ABS thing, and that like they don't seem to have any idea why it's calling balls in or out. And so like it'll miss like 3 or 4 calls in a row before they go, all right, hold on, it just missed like 4 obvious calls in a row. Can we figure out what's going on? And like in one case it was someone accidentally turned the system off. It wasn't on.
Unplugged it.
and then yesterday they were like, this point never started according to the AI machine because the ball boy had not completely exited the court before the serve started. But the ball boy doesn't need to completely exit the court before the serve starts. He just needs to exit the court before the racket hits the ball, which he had. And it's like all these little things that are built into our brains every day. Like I was thinking about this the other day. Like when you go to pick something up, your brain gauges how heavy it is, and you either pick it up with your hand, or if you look at it and you're like, that's a heavy thing, you put your arm or your shoulder into it and you try and pull it up with your body weight. It's like all these little things happen in your brain constantly that you don't actually realize, where you're like figuring stuff out. And now we're just like turning to AI and going like, hey, just call balls and strikes, call in and out at Wimbledon. And like it's at Wimbledon anyway, like we're finding all these little instances where it's like, ooh, that's not, maybe we should just go back to humans until we have this figured out. And Wimbledon's like, nope, the US Open's using this. Someone else is using it. The Australian Open's using this. This is what everyone's using now. We're not going away from this. We're not going to be left in the past. But it's like, I don't know. Was the previous system so bad?
I don't know. Is there any chance that the strike zone is going to turn into an outright Nazi right there in front of us during the All-Star game?
I mean,
feel like
anything's possible with AI.
AI is being manipulated and crazy things are happening. I saw there's some shakeup, John, today at X, at Twitter.
I would hope so, Darren. They invented Mecha Hitler.
Right. Sometimes you take 5 minutes, you go try to enjoy a dinner for like 2 hours and you think, what have I missed? Like, what is going on in the world here? You think you just missed a baseball game. You come out, you find out that Grok, which paid me a nice compliment on my wardrobe when I went on a Darnay trip recently, has turned into a full-fledged Nazi.
Well, it's because
how did I miss that while I was enjoying a cut of meat that I'd never heard of?
You got the right skin tone to get compliments from Grok, I think, and the right last name apparently. I had a fairly Darren Smith like day yesterday when I missed this. I got to like the middle of the afternoon and I was like, I'm just going to hop on my bike and go for a ride. I left my phone at home. I wasn't listening to a podcast or music, which I usually do on a bike ride. I was like, I'm just going to ride. And I was outside and I kept going like, I should do more stuff like this. Just touch grass, right? Like I'm outside, I'm breathing fresh air. I'm not like trying to figure out what this podcast is teaching me or listening to music. I'm just like being present, Darren. I was trying to be present outside while exercising. And it was lovely. And I came back with this like huge like smile on my face. My wife noticed it. She's like, wow, you look like you're in a great mood. I'm like, having a great day. And then I opened my phone. I'm like, what's Mecha Hitler? And Rebecca just starts laughing. She's like, oh, you missed a lot while you were gone.
I know. And then you're like, oh, was it better to just sit here and be miserable for 2 hours or now to feel the avalanche of misery falling upon you? Is it easier to wade into the pool of misery or is it just better to dive into the deep end of it? I'm not sure exactly which is the right approach here in 2025. I think we're all trying to figure this out as we go. I know. I will again say this. Also, thank you to Jared Diamond. Shout out Jared Diamond. He's another guy. As we were talking about ABS and the strike zone, Jared joined us from the Wall Street Journal. He had good reporting on that. I'm again reminded of the book, The Chaos Machine, which now it almost feels like
it's almost outdated. It's almost quaint.
Almost is, but it did talk a lot about how some of the early models of AI could be convinced to by a 24-hour cycle where it got exposed to the public.
Yep.
There was one, I don't remember exactly which server it was. You have the book. I was trying to find the passage last night online, but the book is phenomenal. It's called The Chaos Machine. It's still relevant. It's about social media and just all the things happening with AI. It was written in 2022, 2023, somewhere in that range. And one of it is that they had somebody, a creation a la Grok, and it just turned into this like awful entity and was spewing all sorts of racist stuff after 24 hours of exposure to online behavior and activity. So it's not a surprise for me.
I want to say that was like one of the first instances of like ChatGPT. Like they were able to convince it that the Holocaust didn't happen and like all sorts of just horrible stuff. And then they were like, well, that's kind of when they were like, we need to make sure this thing's not really connected to the internet in a way that's not like monitored.
Yeah, and they just decided to scrap the whole project. So I was looking for that. Maybe you can find that passage later. I thought I texted it to somebody, but I couldn't find it last night. All right, so I guess that's all good. They're going to use ABS during the All-Star game. Take it or leave it for me. I mean, I guess.
It's an All-Star game. I wasn't going to watch anyway.
Yeah, I guess. What else caught my eye from front row seat. So we were this close to having two U.S. males in the semifinals of Wimbledon. Taylor Fritz is there, but unfortunately, Dennis Rodman's potential future son-in-law.
Really?
No, that's an attempt at humor. But
is he dating Trinity Rodman? Is that the connection?
Ben Shelton is dating Trinity Rodman, and Trinity Rodman was shown on television, and somebody made reference to Dennis Rodman, and Trinity Rodman then went on the social media and said, I don't have any relationship with my dad, and I would prefer that you really not mention him during my games, especially not during Ben's games. But Ben got beaten in straight sets by Jannik Sinner, so I guess the elbows is not too shabby. Djokovic is playing right now, so I don't know when the update will be. But it looks like we're going to have Sinner, Djokovic, and then Fritz and Alcaraz in the semifinals on Friday. So that's not bad. Pretty good. But we were close. We were close to having two players from the U.S. in the semifinals. But on the men's side, it was not to be. So what else did you have? We had a little bit of Wimbledon updates. I did text Sean Kelly, since this bombshell drops today from Formula One racing. And I did ask Sean, what was going on here, because I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure if we should try to have Sean back on, but Christian Horner got sacked as the Red Bull chief. And I asked Sean, I said, so talk to me. You're in these circles. I am not. I feel like this is a big surprise. And Sean said, Sean Kelly, virtual stat man, another person you should support. Surprise is an understatement. My questions are, has he been sacked to keep Max? Has he been sacked to not lose Max? Or maybe there are other revelations coming about some of the private life stuff that blew up last year during last season, at the beginning of last season. So those were his questions. Those were Sean's questions, and hopefully we get a chance to reconnect with him at some point.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't following F1 last year, so I don't know what he's talking about with last season and personal revelations. So
he got caught with sliding into DMs and being involved with somebody on the
Horner
team.
did?
Yep.
Oh, well, it seems a little delayed if it's that, but maybe there's more coming. I was in our F1 Discord channel over the weekend saying, like, man, Max feels like he's pushing Red Bull into an uncomfortable place with the way that he was trashing the car on the radio. Like, he was literally on the car going, like, I'm slower than everyone else. This car sucks. Like, I can't even keep it on the track. And I was like, he's making them make a choice. Like, either you make you make me happier in this situation, or I'm gone. So my assumption when I saw this, by the way, loved that the verb for someone losing their job has become sacked. It's no longer fired, let go.
It's been around a while.
I know, but it's becoming more popular.
In English football. Yeah, I think it's a more European term, but I like kicking it around a little bit.
Mentally, it just sounds like someone showed up and put him in a sack and then ran off with him.
Or he gets the sack. There's all sorts of ways you can say it, too.
Oh, yeah,
he's going to get the sack. Yeah.
But I assumed that this was they went to Max and like, what could we do to convince you to stay? And he was like, well, first of all, I would need to pick my own team principal. And they were like, done. Sure, pick one. And that's my assumption, because I feel like if Max leaves, maybe Red Bull's not in a very good spot, and they probably wanted to avoid that.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. I don't know enough about it, but I know Max is a big enough star in the sport and in the sports world that you probably don't do this without consulting.
Right.
But again, maybe there's some other stuff there happening that's related to his scandalous behavior from a year or so ago that will catch up to him and has caught up to him in this capacity. Or maybe it's just the fact, like, wow, that second car stinks and we're really going nowhere. We've got one of the best drivers and the second car is kind of a shitty situation. So, it could be a lot. But I'm sure Sean will be back on the podcast. I can tell you that. And then lastly, this one, I just, again, much more headline than I read the whole story. That this is an NBC7 story here. California Attorney General says daily fantasy sports are illegal in the state. Daily fantasy sports have been officially labeled illegal in California. This is like, every time I listen to sports radio, this is about 90% of advertising. Mm-hmm. The daily fantasy games that some people I'm sure like and some people don't. I don't gravitate towards those conversations when I hear them on sports radio. I got to be honest. Not that I'm listening to a ton, but I don't gravitate towards those conversations. I don't really get it. Listening to people just talk about their wagers, it's not something that I'm interested in at all. It's not that I'm anti-sports betting. It sounds like we could raise billions of dollars in revenue and tax revenue here in the state of California. I've been supportive of it. It's not like I'm anti-vice. I've supported casinos and alcohol and all sorts of stuff throughout my life. Some of this, though, I think it's so new and it's happening so quickly. And some of these statistics are staggering about the amount of young people who have these devices, who have these apps on their phones. And it feels like it's leading us down a pathway that's going to be problematic for a lot of people. You can gamble responsibly, even irresponsibly every once in a while, but rein it in like anything else in life. But like I will tell you, this is one of the things that when John and I were thinking about Section 1904 and whether to use an advertising model or not, this is one of the things that I wanted to avoid. Not that someday California was going to say, no, these are illegal, but that these companies find themselves in these kind of situations where, some of them, end up going out of business and they leave people high and dry. I wanted to avoid having to rely on pushing 3-team teases for listeners of this podcast and supporters of this podcast. So I'm not happy that this is happening. I don't know enough about it to know what its future is. I suspect at some point over a long enough timeline, John, sports gambling is going to be legal in the state of California. And I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing. It will be a bad thing for some people, but hey, personal decisions, right? But it did remind me of our choice to not want to use advertising because I think our advertising would have drifted. We would have been tempted to advertise these kind of products. And I don't know where this would have left us.
I mean, it would have left us in the same place that sports radio is in right now, which is like you're kind of tied to these people. You're relying on them. You feel like you got to push their product a little bit. And at the end of the day, like I am pro sports gambling. I am anti daily fantasy sports. And the reason can be made very easily in the NBA in the last couple of years because it happened with Jonte Porter, who I think has been banned from the NBA indefinitely. And now it's going on with Malik Beasley, who was supposed to be one of the NBA's premier free agents this offseason and now will never play in the NBA ever again because they were caught, quote unquote, gambling. But this was not this is the nicest thing I'm ever going to say about Pete Rose, by the way. This was not the Pete Rose thing where he's like, I know my team can beat that team, so I'm going to put money on it, and that's going to give me extra motivation. At the end of the day, I'm going to make more money based on the fact that my team wins because we're a good team. It's not that. The clearest example I could give you is what Malik Beasley is under investigation for. Malik Beasley supposedly, or someone tied to Malik Beasley, had bet on one of these daily fantasy sites. They do over-unders for individual player stats. And there was one for Malik Beasley. The over-under on his rebounds for a particular game was 3.5. After Malik Beasley got his third rebound in the first half of the game, he stopped trying to get rebounds to the point where like a ball bounced off the rim and landed in front of him. And he literally looked at his teammate and was like, you get it. And that was suspicious. And Jonte Porter had the same thing where he bet on an over-under, I think, for points. And when he got really close to getting to the over, he went to his coach and he's like, I'm sick, man. You got to take me out. My stomach hurts. Because he didn't want to go over. Because it's the easiest thing that they can manipulate. You're literally betting not just on whether or not a team will win, but whether or not an individual player will reach a certain statistical threshold. That shit is so fucking ripe for manipulation that daily fantasy sports should just be illegal permanently. This should not be a thing that is allowed because it ruins sports. And someone in the Discord, our Discord, the other day, the Section 1904 Discord, was saying, how can you blame someone like Malik Beasley for doing this when he probably watches sports, listens to sports, and what does he hear all day long? Daily fantasy, ESPN bet, all this stuff. He just wants to be involved because that's what's going on around sports. And why does he need to be left out, right? And it's like it's so everywhere that it's almost normalized. But if you step back and you look at it, you're like, this is awful. Like, if Phillip Rivers had gotten caught betting on Chargers games, I mean, I guess he's the quarterback. That's a little different. But if who's a wide receiver from the old Antonio
Eric
Gates.
Parker.
Eric Parker got caught betting on Charger games. You're like, well, Eric Parker can't decide to win or lose a game. But if it was Eric Parker over under 1.5 catches and he catches the first one and everyone after that bounces off his hands. That is so easy to win money on. And these guys don't even need to place the bets themselves. They call a friend, they call a girl, hey, put money on this, put money over the side for me. And it's so unbelievably dangerous, not to mention the fact that they thought by creating this daily fantasy sports, they'd get around gambling laws. Be like, oh, now we're in California. Now we're in all these states that say gambling is illegal. Because this isn't gambling. This is daily fantasy with some money attached to it. I hate daily fantasy sports. I used to do a daily fantasy podcast for Yahoo Sports. And it made me a little icky then, but like the more and more we've seen players get sucked into it and how they're trying to manipulate with it, I'm just like, this, if anything were to actually ruin sports gambling, it's daily fantasy sports.
A couple things there. You can go and you can find a bunch of stories. John and I had them, and maybe this was in a previous front row seat, because I know you and I talked about how we can talk about the story. One of the other things that are, as a result, byproducts of daily sports gambling, is how athletes are being treated on social media. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. Now, can you wager on collegiate players yet? And I say yet because if they haven't figured out a way to make that legal, I suspect that there's probably somebody advocating for that somewhere down the road. But, you can listen to a lot of these pro athletes, and they're like, man, every time I log on, if you have open messages, like people will just go into your mentions on whatever it is, however you're using social media, and they'll say, kill yourself, fuck you, this, that, the other thing, you cost me a lot of money, you're a terrible player, you're a terrible person. They always say death threats. I don't know how accurate they are, that they're actual death threats. So that's another unfortunate byproduct of this all. I will say, in some defense, I don't know that you can wager illegally on some of the daily things, the daily fantasy things. Like, can you find a bookmaker somewhere illegally that'll take some action on how many rebounds Cameron Payne has in a basketball game? I don't know the answer to that. Never really heard it. I will say at least there is a system in place when it comes to these that can identify some of the, they do find the irregularities in some of the betting habits. They're like, wait a second, why is everybody all of a sudden betting, over under 3.5 rebounds in a particular game? Oftentimes it is the technology that does identify these kind of situations. So at least there's that, because without it, who even knows what's going on? I remember working at ESPN, and we used to have a bunch of celebrity athletes that would come in, and when their seasons were over, and they would be postseason analysts for fill in the sport, hockey, basketball, whatever. And those guys used to walk into some of the studios, and it was at a time where people didn't have a bunch of televisions, and we had this huge wall of TVs, and some of the guys that came in were like, oh, I got action on this game and that game and the other game. And you start learning a lot of these guys, they gamble a lot. They're into the juice. They love the action. But not everybody, so that's just sort of a neither here nor there type of statement. But, at least that technology does identify these kind of situations, and it makes me feel kind of good that it exists, but I don't know if I think it should be or not should be part of what you're allowed to do with daily fantasy sports. I suspect it's probably not going away, though.
I mean, I just hope it does. It's probably not. It's way too profitable. FanDuel, DraftKings, Underdog, these companies have way too much money to just be like...
In the same story, it says $3 billion in the state of New York in tax revenue. The taxes are crazy. It's 50% tax revenue on this stuff.
They make so much money, and people just keep... I'm not even going to get into like the addiction part of it and how it ruins people's lives. It's just...
that's food, that's alcohol, that's everything.
That's why I'm not against sports gambling. I think it's fine. I appreciate the fact that every time there's an ad for sports gambling, there's then a thing of like having problems stopping your gambling, call this phone number. We'll help you out. It's not great. By the way, when I worked at the NFL, I had to sign a lengthy piece of paperwork that said that if I was caught gambling on NFL games as an NFL employee, that I would go to prison. And so it's not just the players that they're worried about here. Like, if you are a team employee, a league employee, anyone who could be privy to inside information, I mean, this is basically insider trading, right? Anyone who's privy to insider information, like, no. Anyone who could potentially manipulate the markets, they are on you and making sure. That was the 2 years I worked at the NFL. Before that, I'd actually been gambling a little bit on NFL games. I got there, I'm like, I am not playing with this. I read enough of that that contract to know that I would be in big trouble if I even tried.
The same story, NBC says 25% of adults in the state gamble on sports. Is that
In
number?
California?
Yeah. It's a 2024 California Health Interviews Survey from UCLA. 25%. What does that number mean to you? More? Less? What'd you think?
If they are considering like season-long fantasy leagues to be gambling, which it technically is, that number doesn't surprise me. If they're not, that number actually surprises me quite a bit.
It also said that the tax rate for gambling revenue, it's insane. Let's see. 51% tax rate online sports betting revenue in New York. $3 billion.
They're like, we don't want to give it to you, but if you want to pay this, you go right ahead.
50%. And you know, they had an interesting line about the number. What did it say? If it wasn't that population, some might not put up with it. But it's New York, and that population, same thing would go on for California, where the market is so large and the opportunity is so big that they'd be willing to put up with a high tax threshold in order to get legalized sports gambling here. I don't know. It's a lot of money.
This is why, you know, I think I've been thinking about this all offseason. At some point, me, you know, not sure if I'm going to be a Dallas Mavericks fan. And you said at one point, maybe you're just an NBA fan. Like, just watch NBA games. And I do. I watch NBA games. But, like, I like having a team that I root for so that I can root for them and things that are in their interest, as opposed to watching games and needing to find an interest in the game. Because I feel like that would lead me and others towards gambling. And I don't want to be gambling on the NBA. I really don't want to be gambling on the NBA. I'd much rather just, you know, gamble with my heart and my feelings.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, the Clippers did you no favors. Yeah. You were sitting here on this very podcast telling us all that Norm Powell, it was a bit of a olive branch to the county of San Diego to get San Diegans to root for the Clippers. And how about that?
Look, complicated situations. Relationships are hard, Darren.
I can tell. And sometimes you can make them harder.
Yes. Yeah. Just wait until they sign Brad Beal, then no one's going to know how to feel.
All right. I'm going to end it there. I will say SDFC Midweek, I interviewed Emmanuel Boateng, who might go down as one of my favorite people in recent memory to have interviewed. What a great human being. What a great story. He told us all about his experience with the Right to Dream Academy, which is going to open up here in San Diego in the first week of August. This is SDFC's academy system that has academies in Ghana, Egypt, Denmark, and the first of its kind in the United States here in San Diego. So he told us a little bit about being a 12-year-old kid in Ghana, getting selected to be part of the Right to Dream Academy, ended up getting a scholarship to go to high school in Santa Barbara. Then he went to University of California, Santa Barbara. So he's a gaucho. And then he turned it into a professional career, 31 years old, just a great human being. Eyes lit up when we were talking about his experiences with this academy. So that Warren talked to Mikey, like you and like me. Warren asked him about the All-Stars, you know, and he's like, Warren, I got to be honest. He goes, I don't really get this like midweek or mid-season, these accolades. What are we doing? He's like, he was very old school in that. He doesn't understand why people win week of the, you know, player of the week awards or player of the month awards or why we have all-star games or any of it. He just, you know, man just
sell
wants to coach.
sponsorships, Darren.
Yeah. The man just wants to coach.
I know.
He does. He just wants to coach, but he's very funny. And he said it on the record. So I'm just paraphrasing. He's like, I don't really understand these midseason accolades. I don't understand it at all. I was like, you know, good for you for saying that. I don't think, I don't know that Don Garber's going to agree with your sentiment, but you know, I'm glad that you said it, Mikey Vadas. You're one of us.
Should we get Mikey on the phone with Mike Shildt and just be like, come on, man, this All-Star game, what are we making a big deal about? Just whatever. What are these accolades? All that matters is who's holding the trophy at the end, right?
What is this nonsense? Yeah. I mean, I even like Mikey during the week. He's like, top of the table in July is the most worthless bit of commentary ever.
It's something. I mean, for an expansion team, it's something.
I think so, too. But I understood his point. Understood his point.
He's got big goals.
Yeah, so much for a shorter podcast. We're right at the hour mark. All right. We'll be back at it tomorrow, so we'll talk to you when we talk to you.